Super excited today to welcome you to Shut Up and Thrive. My name is Brandon Styll, and I am joined today with Sloane Scott as our guest, and I want to welcome in Debra Sunderland. There you go.
Thank you, Brandon. Thanks, Sloane.
So today, Sloane being our guest, I want to tell you a little bit about Sloane. I am so excited to have this conversation. We got to chat a little bit before the interview. And a little about Sloane. Sloane transforms operational chaos into structured growth, guiding 31 companies through acquisitions and 3 through IPOs across her 3-decade career. Starting her entrepreneurial journey at age 13, she has built and sold multiple startups while developing expertise across industries from music, tech to healthcare. A 3 times cancer survivor, she now helps founder-led businesses create sustainable value through brand building, storytelling, positioning companies for strategic exits on the founder's terms. Wow. That's a heck of a bio.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome in, Sloane.
Thank you, Sloane. So we're so glad to be here with you because we are all about, what are we shutting up, Brandon?
We're shutting up the inner critic.
The inner critic.
That voice inside of you that tells you you're not good enough.
Yeah. And where does that come from?
It comes from my ego, below the line.
Everyone's ego.
Everyone's
right?
ego.
And
yeah.
Why is that?
She thinks I knows the answers to these things. That's the funny part here. She thinks I know the answers.
Yeah, we all have it. So why do we do what we're doing?
I don't know. I can't tell you. Why do we do
our podcast?
To help people? We do this podcast honestly because I just love sharing my learning.
Yeah.
Love sharing the learning with everybody else. I'm just like everybody else here. I love being part of these things because as you learn listening to this podcast, I learn too. So I mean, I just love this.
Yeah, me too. I'm always learning, and because things always come into our path for our learning or not our learning, because the ego doesn't want to learn. The ego, the unconscious mind, is about being right, about how things should be, how people should be, how situations should be, how the government should be, yada, yada, yada. And when things don't line up with what the ego thinks should be happening or the outcome should be, we suffer and we argue, just like I was stressed getting here because it took me a half hour longer to get here and I didn't want to dishonor you and Sloane waiting for me. And it was out of my control. There was an accident on the side of the road. And so I called you and anxious, like, oh no, the cars aren't moving. I'm going to be late. And I was taking on more than my responsibility.
I almost said to you, Debra, are you above or below the line right now?
Right.
I almost said it.
And our mind is always below the line. 98% of the time, our mind is operating on threat and defense. And our work is to notice that that's where we're there. And even when we're present, like everything's going in flow, every 4 seconds, we're either going to the future or the past. The mind's constantly searching for threat. And when it's searching for threat, guess what it's going to find?
Threat.
It's going to find threat. And then it's going to start to believe.
That one right.
Yeah. And then it's going to start to believe that the threat is really real. But guess what? Usually it's making up a story. And when it makes up a story, we still don't catch it. We still believe the story is really actually true. And my story that I was telling myself I was driving here is Brandon and Sloane are going to be upset with me because I'm going to be late. They've got things to get to. They've got things to do. And then my heart's starting to race. And so, and then there might be people online waiting. And then like I tell Brandon, let them know we're like, I'm on my way, right? I'm taking on more than my responsibility, how you are feeling and how Sloane might respond. And then I can't control how you think or feel, how Sloane thinks or feels. But in my ego, I think I can, that I'm responsible for that. And then I continue to spiral down. So taking a few deep breaths when I saw the accident and I focused myself on that person that was probably trapped in the car because their airbags went off, Then I was like, wait a minute. I got to pray and look out for this person. I want to pray for them and what they need, get my mind off of my, and then take a few deep breaths. And like you said, when I get here is when I get here, because that's all I can do is control how am I going to be in getting here. That's it. That's all I can control. I can't control accidents. I can't control how you are going to feel, how Sloane's going to feel. So that's the practice for all of us, because the ego is always going to tell us we have to control an outcome, and we can't. The only thing we control is what?
Ourselves.
Yeah, our thinking. That brings our feelings. That brings our behaviors. That brings our results. And if we want new results, what do we have to do?
We have to look at what part we play in the results, the negative results that we don't want, and we have to make changes.
Yes, because our decisions,
our
decisions that we make, how many decisions do we make in a day?
1 million.
33,000.
Oh, well, it was close.
Wow. Yeah, we do. We make 33,000 decisions a day, and 98% of them are on autopilot, and we're unconsciously making those decisions. And so whenever we get a result we don't want, we just need to look at, where was I when I was making that decision? Was I in threat, in scarcity? Because that's where the ego goes. It always goes in scarcity, not abundance. And scarcity always leads to scarcity outcomes, the unwanted outcomes. Scarcity can never give us abundance and what we want. So noticing, and not to blame self, because the critic's going to want to blame self, like, oh my gosh, I was below the line, and why was I doing that? No. Accept that's where your brain is all the time. Give yourself acceptance and love. You're human, just like everyone else. Take a few deep breaths and, how is this my teacher? So for my learning driving here, it's like, okay, well, maybe when it's going to start raining, look ahead of time and add another 20 minutes to getting here, right?
Sloane did that.
I did. I know what it's like to try to... Traffic makes me very anxious.
Yeah.
And I don't like being late.
Yeah.
So I've retrained myself to, I know where I live in Spring Hill. You have to, if you don't get up and get out by 6:15, forget it. Yeah. So I just find a coffee shop. I go on, I take the address, I put it into Google Maps, and I'm like, where's the closest coffee shop where I can go hang?
Yeah. And now I know, because I've not driven to this podcast when it's raining or, and even though I looked ahead last night, it was going to take me 15 minutes to get here from my house. When I got in the car from my house, it said 40. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, there's not only traffic, there's also schools. And you drive right through a couple school zones, and at 8 o'clock in the morning.
And it's raining.
In the rain.
Yeah. Well, normally I take the highway, and even the highway was longer. So I'm like, okay, I don't think I've ever taken the back roads to your house.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's the best.
It's a beautiful drive.
Drive down Hillsborough Road.
Yeah.
If you don't know, we're like basically in downtown Franklin is where we are right now. We're a mile from downtown Franklin. Sloane's going from Spring. This is a perfect scenario for both of you, because we're meeting in the middle. I mean, this is great. But from where Debra's coming from, like closer to Nashville, you can take the highway, but like that drive down, you can just take one road. You take 21st and just go straight down and make 2 left-hand turns, or right-hand turn to left-hand turn. You're at the house. I mean,
had no idea it was that easy.
Super easy. Here. Oh, easy.
Yeah, totally easy. Yeah. And I must be getting really old, because now I don't like to get on the highway. I like to do the back roads. So, but typically I'm like, it's easy to get to places, just hop on the highway, get off, and there I am. But so thanks everyone for being patient. Thanks for learning with all of us, because we're always learning. 98% of the time we are unconscious, repeating the same thoughts, same feelings, same behaviors that lead to what we don't want. But if we're learners, we look at what we don't want and how we unintentionally created what we don't want, instead of blaming or shaming ourselves or someone else. That's all we're doing in this world. That's all the work is around thriving and taking responsibility to care for ourselves in the world. If we don't take care of ourselves first and love ourselves, we can't take care of others and love other people. So that's really what we're about on this podcast.
Yeah, I think it's funny how, I mean, we're going to get to you, Sloane, I promise. We're going to talk to you. This is
I'm learning a lot. I'm just absorbing.
But I mean, I see it every single day. I've got 140 employees, and the number one thing that I have to respond to is when people cannot take responsibility for their own actions. Like, personal accountability is a epidemic of people not understanding. People want to find blame. And it's like every television show, everything that you look at is whose fault is it and why? This is Biden's fault. This is Trump's fault. This is Hegseth's fault. It's everybody has a fault and they're trying to find it. And that it becomes part of your just subconscious that your first default is whose fault is it? And I just all day long, I'm constantly saying, hey, what part do you play in a result you don't want? This is a result you didn't want. What part do you play in it? I'll be back in 5 minutes. Give me that answer. Like sit for alone for a minute and think about it. And people are like, what do you mean? It's their fault. And you go, no. That's not what I'm asking you.
That's exactly.
And it's a real practice I do on a regular, but it's like all I do now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the number one coaching conversation that I have. What part did you play in this?
Yeah. So it's really interesting because people, when you ask them that, they think, oh, well, it's not my fault, because the ego wants to blame, and it is looking for blame of other people, or usually blame of self. And that's when we start to feel guilty. That's like I was guilting myself, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late, right? And the defenses go up because the unconscious mind is right or wrong, black or white. It's not about like, how can all things be here and how can we learn from this and create a win-win solution. It's looking for a win-lose situation. That's
Sloane, do you do this stuff? Do you do the 15 commitments to conscious leadership?
Not yet.
No.
She's going to start learning the Enneagram with me. We're meeting,
nice.
I think in a week or two.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah, beautiful. So what we're going to do, we're going to start out on celebrating, because the unconscious mind likes to say what's wrong instead of celebrating what is here and all the good things that are going on for us, how things and people are for us. So Sloane, let's celebrate you. What are we celebrating about you and your life and your business?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say I am in an interesting season, and I think you and I talked about this. When you are a solopreneur, it can be a very isolating circumstance, because really the only person that you're arguing with is yourself in the mirror.
Yep.
And so there isn't really a sense of community. It's not like you can just pick up the phone and call another solopreneur and say, I'm in the soup. What do I do? Kind of thing. So what I have learned is to find community in places where I can, and that each one of those communities is going to, is only as good as what I put into it. So I'm still in that discovery mode. I don't know that I've found my community yet, but I'm certainly trying a few on to see how they might play out.
So I want you to also tell me what you are celebrating.
I'll say what I'm celebrating today. How about that?
That's all we have is right now.
I'm celebrating that I have finally cracked the code of not overscheduling my calendar.
All right.
And making space.
Do tell.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how to crack that code?
So I've been fighting it for a little bit. My default as a solopreneur is to fill out my calendar and to just stay busy.
Can you define solopreneur for me?
Yeah. Basically somebody who just works on their own, doesn't have a company, or has a company name, but they are the company.
You're everything.
So I don't have any employees.
Gotcha.
Right. I work with other fractional partners, that kind of thing, to do the work that I do. And so my default is to just fill out my calendar, because then it tells the world I'm busy. But why do I need to tell the world I'm busy? So I had one of those moments over the weekend, actually. And my husband said to me, "You're doing that thing again." And I said, "What thing?" And he's like, "You're over busy again." And he said, "Is it over busy for a reason?" And, that sounds like something so simple, but I just went, oh boy, I'm doing it again. Right? Because this is a past behavior, and I recognized it. And I went, okay, I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to give myself one task this week personally, and that's to unschedule my calendar.
Oh.
And so I went in and unscheduled it and just said no to some things that I had said yes to. And then for the next month, I did blocks of time where I can do just in-depth work instead of just filling it.
So this is beautiful, because it goes to what we say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
The unconscious mind is going to fill us with busyness out of fear. I have to do this. I better do this. And then it starts to like scamper around in our head, our brain. And then we like, okay, I better do this. We should on ourselves unintentionally, instead of listening to, do I have a whole yes to this? Does this make sense for me? Does this light me up? We don't normally ask that. We should on ourselves. And then we're off and running and filling our calendars. All of us do it until we're busy and exhausted. And we're like, wait a minute, this isn't working. What has to go? But even in our letting go of what's coming off our calendar, we can say, of the things I have on here, like Brandon says, how have I created this? How am I responsible for creating this calendar? What was I thinking and feeling when I said yes to putting this on my calendar? Did I even check myself if this is something that I want to do? Or is it a should? Which is very different. A want or a should are two very different reasons, and they're going to give you two different outcomes. When you should on ourselves, when you were shooting on yourselves, how did you feel about your day?
Yeah, completely overloaded.
Completely overloaded.
Like this moment of, I looked at the calendar and I went, I literally don't have time to think.
Yeah.
That's not going to put me in the best place for myself. And it's not going to put me in the best place to do the work I love to do. And so I was being my own worst enemy by just filling up the calendar. And so the ability to be able this morning, early morning. So I think I've told Debra this, but as a 3-time ovarian cancer survivor, on my last bout, which was several years ago, I had to retrain my brain because I had chemo fog. It was terrible. And I just couldn't construct a full sentence sometimes. I would stop mid-sentence and my husband would look at me and go, chemo fog, right? And so I had to retrain my brain. Could I still do this deep strategic work that I love to do? Instead of being a night person, which is where I started, having been in the hospitality industry as long as I was a night person. Now I had to be a morning person because it turned out my brain was actually sharper in the morning. So what I did was I reverse engineered my calendar and said, all right, I'm going to do my deep thinking early in the mornings and then make space for time with clients up until a certain time, and then go back to doing deep work until my brain says I'm done, which is usually about 4:00 in the afternoon. And I know that, and I set that intention. So now it's really up to me to take a look at that calendar. I'm very proud of it. And hold fast to it. Yeah. That's going to be the test.
I love that, because this is a great teacher for everyone, because most people overschedule. Yeah. When people say life-work balance, it's not about just the calendar. It's about, do you have joy in your decision making that you're putting on the calendar? Do you have peace? Or is it a stress that's driving you to put it on the calendar? That's really what life balance is about. Because you can say, I'm going to put less on the calendar, but if the less things are on there and they still don't align with you, that ain't going to help you either.
Right.
So
I'm curious what drives you. I mean, because I feel a lot of synergies with what you're saying, a lot of this stuff. And I'm reading your bio, and at 13, you were cooking and doing all the things, and you've 3 IPOs, 31 companies through acquisitions. Like, that's a lot. Like, what makes you get up every morning and do these things? What's the drive to have that full calendar? I mean, is there a time you go, I just want to travel?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I would say it's hardwired in me. It was hardwired in me as a kid. My parents were very entrepreneurial by nature, and pretty driven individuals themselves, especially my dad. And, at the age of 10, my dad, instead of giving me an allowance, said, I want to teach you the real value of money. And so I would sit down with him and he would teach me how to trade stocks. So he would give me money and teach me about the stock market. And so, I think from a really young age, because I saw my dad and the drive that he had, I equated drive with success. And then success with busyness, right? So those 3 things just got hardwired into me, I think. And I knew at that point, when the company that I started at 13 had actually taken off, I didn't have anything in common with anyone. Like, all of a sudden I was this sort of island unto myself. And I looked at other girls my age who were going to the mall and doing things that teenage girls did. And I didn't want to do any of that. And I went, I'm actually out on an island unto myself. And this is just the way it's going to be. And that's when I took that sort of as not as something negative, but said, okay, I get to chart my own path. So therefore I'm going to do it. I really just started from that point with that level of drive. And I've always had it. But it's changed over time, right? It's definitely changed and morphed over time.
So I'm guessing the big change for you, right, is cancer. How did that impact you in changing your focus, changing your life, changing your work? How did that really impact you?
It's actually two things. So I had a watershed moment that happened in at the age of 21. So grief kicked in as well. So the love of my life, we had gotten engaged. He was a junior PGA Pro golfer, was also in the restaurant business, owned a chain of sports clubs up in Chicago, up in the suburbs. And he was walking out of the restaurant one night and he had grease on the bottom of his shoe and slipped and hit his head and was dead.
Oh my God.
Hit the ground. Yeah. So I was 21.
Just a freak accident.
Freak accident. Total freak accident. My whole life got turned upside down. And 6 weeks later, I was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. Wow. So all of a sudden I had everything I thought was supposed to be my life just went away. So I dealt with the grief of essentially being a widow. It was 6 weeks from my wedding. So dealing with that, dealing with when somebody that young dies, it throws the whole universe into a complete shift. So dealing with everybody else's grief and on top of dealing with mine, and now dealing with this, what could be a death sentence, and having to do all of that. So at that moment in time, I had to stop working. I had to move home and really focus on my health. Yeah. And it was sort of at that moment in time when I decided I'm never going to have to be dependent on moving home again. So I'm going to do everything I can to not ever have to be dependent on anyone but myself.
I almost feel like it's similar. I was 22 years old. I've never told people my real age until I was 30. Yeah. I didn't have cancer. I didn't have that particular moment, but I used alcohol and then I used work.
Yeah.
I work because I don't want to deal with the shit that I have to deal with. I know I'm good at this. I know when I go do this, I don't have to face the other stuff. So it's almost like it's this busyness, I need to be overwhelmed. That feels normal to me when I'm this busy. I get satisfaction from that, but I don't have to deal with all this other stuff. It's an escape for me.
Yeah, well, it's the same, Brandon. I chose industries that I knew I was going to work 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm saying. I feel this energy of like, I'm doing this so that I don't have to deal with this other stuff.
And that's a lot of what I did. And
can I interject?
Yeah, please do.
So I love that you're both bringing this up, and this energy is because I believe this is how we're wired in the United States as well. It's not other countries are like this. We suffer from this behavior that we've been taught at a young age, whether it was our dad or whether it was school or was it our boss. We have been taught that we must keep moving. We must work hard. We must be busy. We must not stop. Right. Because if we stop, we're lazy. We're not going to succeed. We're not going to live up to so-and-so. So, I mean, this is the things that we hear. And so eventually we have a hard wake up. Typically, we have a hard wake up. It's going to be cancer. It's going to be slamming your head up beside a curb and almost fighting for your life like I did when I thought I was going to win at my race. It's what was your wake up, Brandon?
Oh, it's losing. I mean, alcoholism. Alcoholism for me was, I had the work piece and I never dealt with all of the work piece. And my dad owned several magazines and all these things. When I was a little kid, I worked for him. I stuffed magazines and envelopes. I mean, since I had a paper out when I was 8. I mean, like he was an entrepreneur. I mean, that's what we did. I worked. I saw him work every day. That's what you did. I never learned taking time for yourself in healthy ways to cope with stress and other things and why they happen. That's why I'm on this journey with Debra to go, why am I the way that I am? And you know, focus, it's my kid's 10-year-old birthday today, and I'm going to take this afternoon off and we're going to go to Dave & Buster's. Like, that is really freaking hard for me to clear the calendar to go spend the time with them. But it's also, I'm learning, like, that's the stuff that matters. Like, that's the stuff that we do this for.
I love that you brought that up, that it's hard. The things, changing our pattern, Sloane, I want to hear this for you as well. Changing the pattern of being busy, being successful, getting things done, filling that calendar, doing the opposite of that is like pulling your hair out or nails on a chalkboard. It is extremely uncomfortable to do the opposite of what we've been doing. So, and if we don't, we're going to be forced to do it in some way. I believe God, the universe, is going to stop us. And then we are really going to suffer. So, guys, my desire for all of us, including myself, including Sloane, including Brandon, is how do we not have to have a hard wake up? How can we start to look at, I'm got high blood pressure, I've got high cholesterol, I'm at the brink of a heart attack, I've developed cancer. There's so many women that have breast cancer, and I really believe there's several reasons for that. It's out of control. And so how do we de-stress? And it's okay, guys. It's okay to struggle with this. It's okay to be uncomfortable with slowing down. We must be uncomfortable, because if we're not, we're doing the same old thing that's not serving us. We must go where we're uncomfortable and lean on that discomfort in order to do the opposite. And it is, the ego is going to flip you out, and it's to say, no, keep going, and we have to say, no, I'm going to, this is where neuroplasticity comes in. I have got to rewire whatever this thought that's not serving me anymore. I've got to start telling myself something the opposite until that becomes my automatic truth. It's okay for me to do my best and get to Brandon's, and if something happens on the way, I can't control that. I'm going to take a few deep breaths and not upset myself, because every time we're in charge, guys, of whether we upset ourselves or not. It's not someone else that's upsetting ourselves. We upset our own self because of what we're telling ourselves. So we got to master really going there and telling it until we finally believe it, until we finally make it our new feeling and believe it, till we make it our new behavior. So how did you really start to get comfortable with when the cancer came up and it came up again and it came up again? What are your learnings from that, and how have you taken control, and where are you learning about yourself and your life? Because we all learn when you learn. We are all the same. So if we can learn from you, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would say, you know, a critical moment for me in my cancer journey, and if I often say, if I didn't have to make a living for my family, I would just go be a patient advocate, was really learning how to be my own best advocate in my cancer journey, and then how to take that advocacy and turn it around on myself, on my business brain, because I was really good at doing it as a patient. You know, and this is true in the United States, we in the United States are trained to trust our doctors, that whatever they say is the right thing. Well, and we're trained that they have all the power. That's actually not the case. The patient has all the power. You have all the power to make all the decisions about your health, to hold the doctors accountable. And when I went bankrupt for the second time, trying to keep myself alive, because insurance is a scam and doesn't work. And I decided to become a self-pay patient. I knew at that point in time that I was going to take control of my health journey, and I was no longer going to put myself in the position where a team of doctors gets to tell me whether I get to live or die. And so when you've gone through that process and you've signed, I don't know, I think I've signed somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 do not resuscitates and 35 power of attorneys. And you know, it's every time you go into the hospital, it's another round of paperwork, right? And nobody talks to each other. I recognized really early on at the beginning of that journey that if I could do that for myself as a patient, that I can also do that for myself as a professional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so I think it was looking through that lens, and I've been really lucky in my life to work for some incredible people. One of my favorite books, which won't surprise you, Brandon, is Unreasonable Hospitality.
I've had Will Guidero on the show.
Will is one of my favorite people in the world.
The most amazing person.
And so there is a great chapter in the book where Kevin Boehm from Boca Group, who I've known Kevin for years because he actually started in Nashville, which is what most people don't realize.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was one of the first restaurateurs to open up in the Gulch. He opened up a restaurant called 6 Degrees. And I
remember that.
Yeah, on the opening team when he did that. Wow. So, but if you read, there's this great story about how Will is inspired. I believe it was a conference that Kevin was speaking at. And he talked about this idea of slowing down to speed up. Mm-hmm. And that has, the first time I read that, the second time I read it, the 15th time I've read it, the 30th time I've read it, it's still in my journal. It's something I try to reframe and remind myself, whether it's me fighting to advocate for my health or whether it's me fighting to advocate for growing my business. It's the same.
So I love this because you're saying I'm listening to myself and what I need.
Yes.
What my body needs,
mm-hmm.
what my soul needs, what my heart needs. And I kudos to you around taking that opportunity, especially during your critical times of cancer and how am I going to fortify myself? And I had the same thing when I was in the hospital and the neurologist who had taken care of me for a month. And he's telling me as he's plucking out staples out of my skull, saying it's going to take 3 years for your brain to heal and you need to stay home. And I looked at him and said, oh, no, it's not. It's 8 months later, I was back on my bike and my coach is like, you're exactly where you were because I decided I am not going to allow my brain to, no, that's not going to be me. I'm not, that is not where I'm going. And guys, the only way we can, like me, Sloane, Brandon, and all of us are the same. The only way we can decide that is we've got to know ourselves. We've got to listen to our heart. We've got to listen to what do I want to believe about myself? And we don't practice that. We don't practice what do I really want to believe about me and myself and what's for me. We just become reactive to what other people are telling us or what we're told since we're little. And so we want to question, is that true for me? Do I want to believe that?
I think that's exactly what she does. I think that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100%.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. But most people don't because they're too busy. Yeah, they don't slow down to ask themselves. So we don't live a purpose-filled life or work. We're just living to fulfill getting things done. And so until we have a hard wake up, all of us, like you, me, and Miss Sloane, we typically just keep doing the same old until there's something that makes us stop and look at it. So I'm thankful that you're sharing this because we don't want to have those hard wake ups. And in fact, the change formula at the end of the 15 commitments book that I'm practice and I'm certified in, the very end of the 15 commitments talks about how do we really change without having to have a hard wake up. And it's about having a vision. Well, we got to stop and have a vision for what do I want to have for my life? What do I want to have for my work? What do I want to have for the people that matter for me? And then the next part is obviously to have a vision that's never enough, right? If we can have a vision, but then how are we going to fulfill it?
Yeah. And I think the other thing that strikes me when you're talking about this, Debra, is that I also had that moment of what's enough? Mm-hmm. Like, what does that actually mean? I became the breadwinner for my family. My husband's handicapped. So I became the breadwinner in 2008 when the market dropped out. And I just knew I was going to have more earning power. We reversed roles. And I just said, you take care of the house and the dogs and all of that. And let me go figure out how to keep the roof over our heads. And I remember getting, again, kind of caught up in that vortex of busyness. And then having a moment with him where I sat down at the kitchen table and I just said, okay, we need to reframe what's enough. Like, how long do I need to keep working? How much money do we really need? Mm-hmm. What does that really sound like for us? Can we live really simply? Can we shed some stuff? Can we do all of these things? And, you know, I remember that it wasn't an easy conversation. I remember that it's easy to shed and then fill back up again. So I want to say we've shed a couple times, at least.
Well, it's cyclical. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because you work your ass off, and you're a badass. I mean, in every way. I just here to talk to you. It's funny because you remind me. I don't know. There's so many synergies here, but it's this need that's hardwired to get out there and work, and then you build it up, and then you get completely burnt out and exhausted, and you go, I need to take some time for myself. That's when you have that conversation with your spouse, and you're like, hey, look, we need to shed. I can't. This isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And then you finally feel like, okay, this is good. But then a week later, you're like, this ain't for me. I can't do this. I was exhausted. I took a week or two or a month, but now I got to do it again. And then you do it again and you build it back up. And then you're like, hey, well, we need to take this. It's almost like if you could just plan that, I'm going to spend 6 months and go. And then I know that's not the right way to do it, but it's funny how I do the exact same thing.
This
like, what's the antidote, Deborah?
Well, this plays into knowing our patterns.
Yeah.
Because we are not our pattern. And the pattern is there for our false security. It's there for our false identity. It's there for our ego. And so if we can see it, because the change formula, which I started to say is vision, we can have a vision, but the only way we can get there is to really, the vision has to equal its times discomfort equals plus the very next step, parentheses, with fear, because a new step is going to be fearful, equals change. So
I didn't know there's math involved here. Hold on.
It's vision times discomfort.
I'm going to write this down.
And we're going to go in deeper about this. It's vision times discomfort plus the very new next step, parentheses, there will be fear, and you step forward anyway with love to yourself in the fear, equals change. Now, why do you think it's tossed in there times discomfort? Why do you think that's in the equation?
I'm going to guess here, but I'm going to say it's designed to make you pay attention.
Right. Discomfort is there.
It's designed to make you, discomfort to me, it's sort of that visceral feeling. You feel it in your body. You know when it's happening, and it's almost a signal that's sending it to you that said, hold on, hold the phone.
Yeah.
There's a reason you're feeling this way.
Yeah. And typically what we do is we wait until there's too much discomfort.
Or we fill it up with stuff so we don't have to feel.
Well, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, though. This is what I'm saying. That if you are not uncomfortable every day, you are not growing, and you're in your pattern.
Yep.
So we must be uncomfortable. There must be discomfort all day long to get out of our pattern.
You see what I wrote? It says discomfort equals growth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that we don't know our potential because I love being in a 72-degree room in my car. So we know at our age, we know what makes us comfortable. We want to live in this 72-degree world, but the world is huge. And we don't appreciate other things until we get discomfort, and then we can grow.
We go with the reason we keep doing this. Oh, I know that I got to go back and make sure I do less, but then we amp ourselves up. It's because it's comfortable. It's what our ego knows.
Yeah, it's our default.
So we must break the default. It's like being an alcoholic, or having a drug addiction. We are addicted to being busy. And so to break it is going to be painful. It is going to take effort. It is going to take work. And the effort is noticing and loving self, because we're getting temporary hits. The reason we do it is because we get a temporary feel good.
It's an endorphin.
It's a temporary feel good.
Yeah.
But we must learn
to know it is for me.
Yeah, it is for me too.
So for us to do that, we want to find out, how could the opposite be true? Like Sloane's finding, how could I do less and that feel even better? How could I slow down and I get addicted to that feeling of being present, knowing myself, and it's a rewiring, not just in the mind, but in the body, because we are addicted to an adrenaline rush. That just like I was addicted to racing my bike. Oh my gosh, going to the line every time. Everyone's scared to death because we know there could be a crash. It's, we're shoulder to shoulder. It's intense.
Yeah.
But we're also addicted to it. And it feels good to be like, okay, yeah. And then once you go through that line, you're like, your adrenaline pushes you off and you're like off into the races. But it's like, what are we addicted to? So we all got to look at, what am I addicted to? And can I love that part of me that's addicted? Now, we're not addicted people, but we have a personality, a persona that's addicted. And so can I love that one and say, you're going to be okay, and I'm going to love you, even though you're fearful to let go of whatever your addiction is. We have to love ourselves in that. We can't give it to someone else to love ourselves. And that's the other thing that I found. I think we talked about that, Sloane, is, and when I left, there are 3 questions that I ask people, and I'll always bring this up, is 1, do you believe you're enough? 2, do you believe you have enough just right here, right now? And 3, do you know how to love yourself? And most of us don't, because we're addicted to filling it up with something else to make ourselves temporarily feel good. So it's all of our work. The ego is not a loving soul. The ego is based in fear, which is the opposite of love.
And my biggest problem is balance. I just can't find balance in anything. I just go, and I want to
say you can't.
I can.
And when we say we can't, we will.
That's just my biggest challenge. It's a challenge, and I'm not very good at finding balance because.
How about?
You also work in an industry that doesn't. Wait.
I want to stop that.
No.
It's every no. It's not the industry.
Just go with what she said.
It's not the industry, because everyone's going to say, "Oh, my industry." No, it's because we're human, and the reason that you're human. The reason that your mind is always there telling you that you have to earn something, that you aren't okay just the way you are. It needs to go get something. And so in order for you to feel good about yourself, so that's a lie. That's a complete lie. So we got to look at like what we're believing.
Yeah. And I think, when you say that, Deborah, what strikes me is that I kind of go back to this hardwired statement. As a young kid, a lot of that stuff got hardwired in me.
It sure did.
From a very, very young age.
It sure did.
And I learned by working with my dad. I learned through these things. And I was raised with an alcoholic parent who, was on the outside looked like she could be on the cover of Focus. And then on the inside, when the doors were closed, it was a completely different human being. And I lived that my entire life. So for me, busyness was also the escape from that. Mm-hmm. And the script that I hardwired into my brain was that if I achieve enough and I do enough and I have enough, then I'll never be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then and the deeper side is you probably didn't get from her the genuine love of a mother made you feel enough. So you're constantly chasing that feeling that you didn't get as a child. Because
I was
you're probably
an adult at like 6 years old.
Yeah, well, you're the adult of emotionally mature parents.
You learn that you needed to earn your love.
Yeah.
Most of us have learned that we've been taught we need to earn something in order to be worthy, in order to be loved, in order to be enough, in order to have enough. And those are all scarcity attacks of the ego. And it plays out in everyone. And so we all have a pattern, similar patterns, but maybe not, but similar. And so I can't wait to find out about your Enneagram, because if you're really about this achieving and winning and earning, it could be.
I'm not anymore.
No,
but that's
3 or an 8.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
3
a
or
5.
8.
You're a 5?
Yes, she's a 5.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're a social 5. We'll have to look at that. I think you're pretty much. I think that's what it said.
It could be.
Yeah.
Because I think what ends up happening, you talk about how these moments in your life sort of really change and shape you.
Yeah.
For me, because at that young age, I was taught that that's how you got reward. right, was going and doing and getting and being and all of those things.
That's our culture, yeah.
And then I really reverted and got rid of all of that and became less of that. When I got sick the third time, I worked with a founder, a male founder, who wasn't a really big fan of women in general. I think he was going through a bad divorce at the time and was just not, we weren't seeing eye to eye. And I hid the fact that I was sick because I was so terrified that I was going to get that sort of like he was going to lash out at me and that he was going to see me as less of a person because I was sick. And so I just worked through the sickness and didn't let anybody know that I was sick. And it was sort of that moment in time. And it wasn't that long ago. It was sort of that moment in time when I said, you know what, it isn't about the stuff and the accolades and all that. It's not about that anymore. I said, I'm just going to be a good steward for others. And I flipped the script completely and said, I'd rather help others be successful. And I will find my own, bless you. I will find my own reward in that.
Yeah. It's interesting because 5s tend to limit their emotion, their energy. That's their main, they're concerned about not putting out too much into the world because they need to reserve. They're about reserving themselves.
It was protection.
Yeah.
It was definitely protection. And I recognized that it really changed me as a person.
But I think there's an interesting, from your hospitality, there's a spirit of service inside of you. When I said you're a badass 100%. And you're a leader, you're very curious about things. And when you learn things, because you go above and beyond, you're not going to accept a generic answer for something. You're going to find the reason, the answer. And then when you crack the code, you then in turn want to go share it with other people. Hey, I don't want other people to have to deal with this. Let me go help them. And then your brain goes, oh, there's a huge need for this. I could probably help a bunch. I could make a business out of this. I could make a small, but I can go help all these people with what I've learned. But that's your natural state. And then that's you working in your genius, but then it will consume you because now it becomes a mission. And then you let all these other things go. And then finally you go, oh, I'm spending way too much time over here. But it's not, I think it's more of a passion. It's a passion because you're a leader and you want to stand up for other people and you're curious and you don't take no for an answer. That's all of that encompasses what I said earlier. I go, you're a badass. You get it. You get out there. And it's that spirit of service to help other people. That's where I'm like, my whole new company that I'm doing is the same thing in a different way.
So I want to say, so your 5ness, when you said that you were going to listen to yourself, when the doctors said this is XYZ and this is how you're going to, 5s are the most knowledgeable on the Enneagram. They go very, very deep to get the answers. They're the engineers of the world. And so that has served you well, that part of you. It's really amazing. And you finding those answers will help others as well. Yeah. The Enneagram that I am certified in and teach and work through, the one that you just took that assessment, that developer, I will only get people typed on that because he is a 5. And he said he will guarantee that your assessment is accurate, even if it's 1 point off, because he has done the work where you can't trick the answers to get a different outcome. And I found that if you're not typed correctly, you can't grow. Right. You can't see your pattern that keeps you where you are. So this is the gift of the 5, is that you go very, very deep to see what's really there. Very, very knowledgeable. I love that. So where are you going this year? Like where do you want to grow for yourself, your business? Like what's exciting for you?
Yeah, I would say I'm in a really interesting, as I said, season, and I've used that word because I firmly believe that's what it is. I feel like you have to slow down to speed up again. So I am there. I launched the company at Sloane.co back in February, and I kind of did it again. I did my research. I even prototyped with a couple of clients who were willing to prototype with me to see if it would work or stick. And I just got it up and out there in the world. And what I was able to do was really learn that that's actually not what was finding me. The types of clients that were finding me weren't those who either had hit a plateau in their company and needed to get over the hump and were building to exit, or they had screwed it up so badly that they couldn't see a way out and needed me to come in and fix it, because that's what I did for years. It was a turnaround, right? So before it had a title. Actually, what's finding me now, which is fascinating, and I'm loving it, but it's different work, is founders who want to build their companies right from the very beginning, and know that they're building to exit. So they can say, it's either on their vision board or it's in their pro forma, they can say in 36 months, I want to get a check for X.
Yeah, I love that, because I've found that most business owners, even CEOs who take over a company, they don't plan for their exit, their strategy. Yeah. They just jump in, and I'm like, as soon as you start a company, you already need to know where you're going and how you're exiting. And most don't do that. Yeah, so I'm so thankful you're doing that.
It's that piece of it, but it's also the founder journey, which is a little bit of a reframe. You know, the past 10 years, I've worked primarily in private equity and venture capital, and I loved it. And I got lots of experience working with founders, but I was answering to a different master, and you lost the relationship of the founder in that, because it was actually dictated by the private equity or venture capital firm. Mm-hmm. And so about a year ago, when I knew I was hitting 31 exits, I'm about to hit 32, but knew when I was hitting 31, I sort of asked myself, is this the work I want to continue to do? And the answer was no. And I said, okay, but what about this work do I actually love? And it was the relationship with the founder, because what ends up with the founder, and I did a complete deep dive, you'd laugh, I'm a 5, and I looked at all the different characteristics around all the companies that I'd helped build exit. And I found 3 really interesting ones that were really rooted in the founder. And that is, one, the founder started it with a dream. There was a reason they decided to create this thing, whatever it was. It was solving some problem, typically something they'd experienced in their own lives, and said there had to be a better way, right? This isn't rocket science. And they solved some piece of a problem. And then they got it up and they got it out in the world. And then it hit a certain threshold of revenue, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, whatever it was. And their whole dream got completely lost in all of that. And so their exit, what started out as the exit of them, became the exit of the company. And they got lost. When in actuality, those are 2 different transactions. There's a founder can have an exit, and the company can have an exit. Mm-hmm. And so it was going on the journey with the founder to help them reframe that dream back. What was the reason you started this in the first place? And then calibrating not just a company, but helping them calibrate, so that when we got to the point where somebody was going to write them a check, it was the check they wanted. It was the check they dreamed of.
Yeah. I think it's because what I have found too around founders is that they lose their vision because they get caught up in the weeds, and they try to control everything and everyone and outcomes, and they kind of lose that themselves in that. And why am I doing this? Where am I going? How do I separate myself that I'm not my business?
Yeah.
Right. Because they believe unintentionally, unconsciously, that they are their business, and it's their false identity. So I'm really grateful that you help them separate. Wait a minute, there's a business, and then there's you.
Yeah.
And you can keep growing and thriving. And how do you call in support so that you don't become that? And trust. You got to trust others instead of trying to control the outcome and control everyone else, so that you can exit and still leave yourself intact and the business intact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the journey I'm on now, which is working with founders, helping them set the company for exit right from the beginning.
It's gorgeous.
And it's really fun because I'm getting all kinds of exposure to different types of businesses. It's not just one vertical, it's several. But the formulas are the same.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's what she was saying.
The formulas
are always people.
Yeah.
It's always people. And my desire as well is for people. The reason I'm here is the reason I woke up, which is similar to you, because you had this huge wake up from your journey, right?
Yeah.
It's how do you question yourself. You're like, what do I want to stop here and pause? Like, do I want to keep doing this? What excites me, and where do I want to go with this? And that's the question I want everyone to be asking, is to pause every day. Is this what I'm still called to? Do I need to tweak in some way? Do I need to let something go in some way? Because just because we come up with are successful doesn't mean we're doing something, doesn't mean we have to stay on that path. Because as we're growing and changing and becoming who we're called to be, which hopefully we're always becoming and growing and birthing a new self of who we are, what we're doing is going to change. So if we're not changing what we're doing, we're probably not growing. If we're just on automatic pilot doing the same old. And as we grow and learn, we're going to help other people grow and learn, because we're seeing something different. We're seeing what people need because we're seeing what I need, and we all need the same thing. We want to have peace. We want to have joy. We want to have love. We want to have security, but we want to be the source of that, not at the effect of what side of ourselves. And we've been taught what is outside of ourselves is is going to keep us safe and fortify us. But our work that Brandon and I practice is we're the source of that. And as we start to break away from those addictions to our false identities and what we've done that's got us where we are, then we start to become who we're becoming. And who we're becoming is really important, because I've just read a Gallup poll last week. Our industries, no matter what they are suffering because people are not engaged. It's the worst ever that it's ever been in history. And people are feeling lonely. They're feeling disengaged. They're feeling they don't know their purpose. We've had so much happen in the last 5 years. I don't even know that if people have processed that really, what's gone on for themselves in their business in the last 5 years, whether they're an owner or a worker. But how do we start to take responsibility, like we first started our conversation of, what am I believing? How is it serving me? What do I want to believe? How do I want to learn about myself? Maybe I'm creating a busy life that's not working anymore. The patterns that need to change. How do we do that, right? Stepping back all the time to take care of ourselves. And we've been told if we take care of ourselves, we're selfish. That's what we were told when we were little. You can't, no. But we must take care of ourselves. We must be radically selfish in order to grow and thrive and help others grow and thrive. So I applaud you for doing that over and over again. And guys, I'm just saying it for me and for you and for everyone here. Let's do that every day. We got a question. Let's get out of autopilot so that we can thrive.
Yeah. One of my favorite, again, I'll bring it back to Unreasonable Hospitality, because the beauty of that book is actually not the main chapters. If you read the subtitles to the chapters, they're beautiful. Like Will did an amazing job with that. They're very relatable. And there's one that has always stuck out with me, and it says, you must be able to name for yourself why your work matters.
That's right.
And so when you think about purpose, I always have that with me. Can I name for myself why my work matters?
Exactly. Because how much time do we spend in our work, right? And you're taking care of your household. You're taking care of you and your husband. You're taking care of yourself and taking care of your body so the cancer doesn't come back. There's a lot of things you got going on. And if it doesn't matter, guys, I just want to say this as a total side note. My slogan to that is, I tell myself, is my life was spared to wake you up to yours. And my genius is seeing yours, and we all have that. And if we're not living the life we're called to, what we're doing doesn't matter. It's a temporary hit if we're doing just stuff to fill our schedule. So I'm just so thankful that you have that quote. All right, so we're going to wrap up. Would you like to say, Brandon?
I want to throw in my favorite quote from that book.
Yes, do.
And it works with all of this. I have two that are my favorites, but number one is, he said, like being on an airplane, you have to put your oxygen mask on first.
That's right.
Before they say, don't put your oxygen mask on the kid first. Put your oxygen mask on first so that you can help others. And
that's right.
That is such an amazing piece of advice in all of our worlds.
Yeah.
That if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, we can't help other people. If we don't tell that voice inside of us to shut up and take care of it. If I'm not healthy, if I'm not all of these things, I can't do what I do. And the other one I thought was really good. He says, perspective has a timeline. And what that means is you're going to grow, you're going to get better. If you're a server, you become a manager, you first become a manager, you remember what it was like being a server, and you're a server's manager. Yeah. But eventually you forget what it's like to be a server. And then you become a general manager and you forget. Eventually you forget that perspective has time. So he said, write down in a journal what that experience is like throughout your growth. And then go back and look at that so that you can step into other people's shoes and you can remember what it was like to be in their shoes, because that's when you grow. Perspective has a timeline. And I loved both of those quotes because they're just, I mean, it's wisdom.
It's beautiful. So I just want to thank Sloane for being here and
Thanks
sharing.
for having me.
Yeah.
This is great.
So great. Sharing. Yay!
You can never have enough round of applauses, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm having a bad day. Sometimes I just sit in the studio and I'm like, thank you. Thank you. I need this.
It's hilarious. That's so great.
Like
exactly.
Your own personal laugh track. I love it.
And guys, I love it. Because the ego takes everything too seriously. Yeah. So let's laugh more. And
way too seriously.
That's right. It is a scary place. Have you heard this quote? I'm going to botch it a little bit, but it's a scary place to be in our mind, to be alone with our mind, because the mind is going to beat us up. But guys, remember, you are not your thoughts. You're not your feelings. You're not even your outcomes. But everything is for your learning, just like Sloane said. Like, she used her cancer to come back to herself and learn, like, wait a minute, how am I going to take care of myself? What is here for me? Am I going to believe this? I want you to question your thoughts and your beliefs all the time. Remember, you aren't those. You have radical responsibility to do that, guys. You can learn from yourself, and you are your biggest gift to yourself. If you choose, you got to be the gift to yourself first. It's not going to come from someone else. So I just appreciate you for modeling that. And I want to say I'm thankful for Brandon always hosting us and putting out this beautiful podcast for us week after week, month after month. Thanks, guys, for being on this journey. And we want you to reach out to us. Sloane, how do people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Sloane Scott, or you can also go to my website, Sloane-Co.
Beautiful.
There you go. Beautiful. I want to give a promo. I want to say that we did an episode, 3 episodes ago, because we had Maury and Cindy Elstein on.
Yeah.
The one previous to that was with just me.
Yes.
And during that episode, I kind of said, hey, look, I'm overwhelmed with sadness right now. And we talked about the grief that I was feeling from my cousin's passing. And we're going to do a follow-up episode to that. Coming up. Our next episode, I think, is going to be us talking about, I took a journey. I took a trip to California to kind of work on this. And one of the things that we talk about is feeling your feelings all the way through. And that's something I'm getting so much better at. And it's such a blessing.
Yes.
But I wanted to feel those feelings all the way through and feel them. And I did that. And I learned a lot. And we're going to do an episode of kind of a follow-up. So if you go back and listen to the last episode with me and Debra, if you want to get caught up, the next episode is going to be kind of talking about what I learned through that and kind of what that feeling was like for me, this big, strong man just crying, and what that was like. And it was, I'm very nervous about getting into it because it's a very vulnerable state, but we're going to do it.
I love it. And so I just want to appreciate and applaud this dear man, because
You said it. I have to do it.
Yes, applaud. Because if you know anything about the 8 Enneagram, they are not going to be vulnerable. Their work is vulnerability because they come into the world believing they need to be strong. They need to take control. And they are not going to show sadness or fear because they grew up thinking, and I think most men do, that that is weakness. And dear ones,
isn't it though?
Yeah, right. So you are going to be the poster child for most men on how feeling your sadness, feeling your fear has healed you and all the learnings. And I cannot wait to hear even more, because I know you shared some of them, all your beautiful learnings. And grief, dear ones, loss, sadness happens. We all are losing something every day. Things that we're disappointed about, things that we thought would happen. So how do we allow loss to come into our life and learn from it instead of it being stored in our bodies and it causes us to suffer and we don't get our learnings, or allow something new to come in because we're holding on to what we think should have happened. So I can't wait to hear about all your learnings.
We're going to do it.
Yes.
Sloane Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. And
Me too. Thanks for having me.
I don't know if you have to leave. I've spent some more time after this, but thank you so much for stopping by today. And join us next time on Shut Up and Thrive.
Thanks, everyone.